Hi everyone, it's Tox from critshappen.com. Thanks for watching and welcome back. We're here with another critical preview where we take a game that's about to be on Kickstarter, put it through its paces, and let you know about our thoughts and experiences with it. If it's something you find interesting, you can check out the project page and the links below in the YouTube description, or there'll be a link at the end of this video as well that you can check out. Today, we're here with Chaosmos. Now, Chaosmos is a deceitful little game. The concept is very simple. You are an alien race in an ever-collapsing universe, and it's up to you to find the ovoid in and among this gigantic space. There are going to be planets with planetary envelopes hiding secrets. There are going to be players with cards in their hands, also hiding secrets. It's designed for 2 to 4 players and involves trickery, deceit, a little bit of werewolfness, and a lot of cosmic interaction. So come with me, get your best hyperspace tokens, get all of your Freeneland factors, and some imps, and let's jump in to Chaosmos. So this is Chaosmos. Chaosmos is a game about deceit, treachery, lying, backstabbing, all the other fun things you can think of an evening with your friends. The idea in Chaosmos is the universe is collapsing, and you and your opponents are an alien race. Each of you are different races, and as you can see, there are a lot to choose from. There's 10 in the base game, and here we have a setup for a 3-player game. But you and your opponents are an alien race trying to capture the ovoid. The ovoid is an interstellar galactic artifact that is going to ensure the safety of your one race. And it's up to you to move around this universe and either find the ovoid or protect it. Now each turn, this chaos clock is going to tick down 1 number. When it hits 0, whoever has the ovoid in their hand is going to be the winner. It sounds simple, right? It's not. The thing is the way the game is set up, you're only going to have a certain amount of information. Now let's say in this 3-player game, we're going to start to set up. The first thing we do is we take 6 cards and we make up the cosmic pool, which is at the top. Those are 6 cards that are randomly revealed and are common information to all the players in the game. Then we're going to set up the planetary envelopes, which is the biggest part of the game. There's an envelope for each one of the planets that's on the board. There's also a planet for each alien race. There is also a planet that is chemically biohazardous to another race. You'll notice that each of the planets have a color matching the alien races. But there is also a color ring around them. And that, for example, on Ob, there is a white color for the, I think it's Tertalgi, or some of the names are wicked. We'll just call them by their nicknames. The Pacifist is the white alien race. So this is where they would start. And then there is an outer ring of red, which is the Destructors race, the Vlashos, I think is how you say it. And they cannot land on that planet unless they have a specific type of environmental gear to help them land on that planet. Now, what's going to happen is at the beginning, after the cosmic pool is set up, the rest of the cards are going to be shuffled up. Some are going to be dealt out to the players, and some are going to be placed in these envelopes. In a 2-player game, each player is going to have 8 cards in their hand, and each envelope is going to have 6 cards. In a 3-player game, each player is going to have 8 cards in their hand, and each envelope will have 4 cards. And then in a 4-player game, each player is going to have 6 cards in their hand, and each envelope will have 4 cards. Now what that means is each player has access to anywhere from 6 to 8 cards in their hand, depending on the number of players in the game, and the 6 cards in the cosmic pool to know what's what and what's where. Everything else, they have to go discover outside in the universe. So if somebody is dealt the ovoid from the very beginning of the game, they know they've got it, and they know that's great. But they also know there's a potential that someone is going to come steal it from them. On your turn, you're going to have 3 action points, and there's different actions that you can do. You're going to be able to move, and each planet and each star is a different movement space. So to move 3, you could go 1, 2, 3. You're also going to be able to control a planetary envelope of a planet you're on. So if I start my turn here on Ulu and I don't control the planetary envelope, I could spend an action and take control of that envelope. The third action is combat, and combat is where a lot of information gets gleaned between two specific players. The planetary envelopes is a huge part of how you're going to gain information because there's going to be so many cards spread out on the different planets. You're going to have to do a little exploring and figuring out what's going on. Now, we wanted to show you a critical playthrough of this. However, this game doesn't really lend itself to doing that very well and keeping it entertaining and engrossing. So what I rather would like to do is talk to you about 3 specific times in the game and 3 different things that really made an impact to us while we were playing this game. So the first thing that comes to mind is the very beginning of the game, where you only have information based around so many cards in your hand and so many cards in the cosmic pool. From here, it's a little bit of a crapshoot as to where you go. If I'm this blue player, the collector, and I start on Ulu, and I don't have the ovoid in my hand, the ovoid can never start in the cosmic pool, so you know it's not there. But I've got a good balance, let's say, of cards in my hand between cards I could use to attack with and cards that I could use as actions and abilities. I'm going to have to make a choice as to where I want to go in the galaxy to start off. Now, I see that my opponents are over here, so maybe I decide I want to come this way and go 1, 2, 3 over to Cyclocus. I could do that and start to progress this way. However, it doesn't guarantee I'm going to find the ovoid if I don't have it. However, I could gain a lot of information about what's in each of these planets' envelopes, and that could become very, very valuable throughout gameplay. Because when you control a planetary envelope, you're allowed to change cards between the envelope and your hand as much and as often as you'd like until someone asks you to true your hand up. So at that point you have to decide what's in the envelope and what's in your hand. And yes, there is a hand size limit, of course. You're not just going to have everything all in your hand. Now, there's 2 reasons that that's important. Number 1, you want to be able to throw people off the scent. You want to give them the question of, does this person have the ovoid in their hand or do they not? Are they tricking me and they're just trying to bait me into attacking them? Or do they really put something into a planetary envelope and it would be better for me to go after that envelope? There's a lot of different nuances that are going to happen throughout the gameplay like that. The other thing is that there's 3 important card types. There are bases, traps, and vaults. And you'll notice that the cards read normally, but along the side it says base, trap, and vault. There's a specific reason for that. While you're on a planet and you control a planetary envelope, when you put cards back, you would normally put them back face down. So it would be like this. That way when a person opens it up, they go like this, open it, and see everything that's in there. However, if I wanted to set a trap, for example, and put the ovoid in this envelope, I could do that and put it in like this so that when a player opens it, the first thing they see is trap. And they know that that's the first thing that they have to deal with. They're going to pull out the trap card alone and they're going to read it. And this one is a telewarder trap, or telethwarter trap. It says, turn face up in an envelope to activate. Once active, any player who takes control of that envelope is banished home. Then discard this to the void. So if I put the ovoid in here and another player comes onto Sylabic here to access this envelope, they have to deal with this. Now if their home planet is Jagladak, they get sent all the way back over to here. And they don't ever get to learn what's in this envelope. So the traps are a big, big part of being able to subterfuge and set some booby traps for your opponents. The bases work very similar. However, the bases allow you to put a planetary base down and protect the envelope. When someone comes to a planet, they have to have no one else controlling that envelope for them to take control of it. A base allows you to keep control of that envelope. You can't look in it, you can't do anything with it, but it allows you to then move away from that planet and someone would have to attack the base before they could successfully access the envelope. And when the base is attacked, you get to roll dice and defend and play cards and defend, just as other attacks, which we'll explain in a second. And then finally there's vaults. And vaults are really cool because vaults require keys to open up. In this case, this one says turn face up and leave in an envelope to activate. Once active, players may not take cards from that unless they reveal a magnetostic key. Therefore, it's just similar to a trap. However, they know, I gotta go find a key now. There's some really deadly, nasty things to do in this. One thing that happened in one of our games was someone actually put a key in their hand, then a key behind the vault. So almost like locking the door and throwing away the key. That's what they did, to where they knew they were the only ones that had the key. So there's a lot of fun nuances you can do with that. And this is all just at the beginning of a game, plotting out a strategic course as to what you want to do. Now, a little bit later in the game, several things are going to be happening. The first thing is that cosmic pool could be essentially shifted up. When you're on your home planet and you control your home envelope, you're allowed to trade a card from something in your hand with something in the cosmic pool. What you trade is very telling, because this is common information for all to be able to see. If you take a combat card and leave an action card, that could tell someone, okay, they're prepping up to fight somebody and take them on. So there's a lot of information that's going to be gleaned just off of that public area. But in addition, later on in the game, you're going to have access to 2 or 3 or 4 types of planetary envelopes and know a little bit more about the information. Another thing that I absolutely really love about this is halfway through the game, if you happen upon the ovoid, if no one's been dealt the ovoid and it's in one of these planetary envelopes and all of a sudden you're the one that finds it, there's an amazing amount of exhilaration and just fun that happens when you realize, I know where it is, no one else knows where it is. Oh my God, I hope my pupils didn't just dilate and everyone knows what's going on. The blood starts to rush and you start to realize, do I leave it here? And see, for example, in a case like this, if I'm all the way over here and I find it and everyone else is over here, do I just leave it there? And maybe not even make an attempt to protect it at all and make sure and watch what my opponents do, because my opponents could be moving this way, possibly totally away from the ovoid. There's some real rush involved with that type of move when that happens. But sooner or later, that's going to happen to somebody if no one's been dealt the ovoid. However, if there doesn't appear to be any kind of rush of energy or anything like that, you might begin to think that maybe someone else has it. So it may lead you to something towards the mid or the later part of the game, which is all around attacking and all around combat. So let's talk a little bit about how combat works and why it's important and why you would do certain things at certain times. So later on in the game, we see a situation where 2 players are together on a planet. One player may control that planetary envelope, and the other player may want control of it. The only way to do that is to attack them. Well, attacking is big for 2 big reasons. The winner of the attack has an option. They can either choose to banish the person, which means to send them back to their home planet. So if the blue player, the collector, won, the orange player, the automaton, would be sent back to their main planet. That's a pretty big thing, because again, remember what we just talked about, where if you know where the ovoid is in one of these planetary envelopes, if I could send this person all the way back here, knowing the ovoid is over here, that's a huge, gigantic play, because it forces them to spend actions to get back over here if they even know or realize that that's where the ovoid is. The other thing that you have an option to do if you win the attack is you could steal a card from someone's hand, which is called taking spoils. You get to look at their entire hand and take 1 card. And that's where the danger of holding the ovoid in your hand becomes prevalent. Because as early as the first or second turn, someone could catch up to you or hyperspace to you and attack you. And if you have the ovoid, all of a sudden they could take it and put it in their hand, and now they've got it. Now you know that, and they know that, but the other player or other 2 players in the game don't know that. So it's up to both of you to not react or overreact too much and make sure that more information than is needed is shared amongst everyone at the table. So combat is actually quite simple. The way combat works is each player is dealt 2 dice. The blue player rolls his 2 and the red player rolls his 2. And this starts your base attack score. So in this case, there is an 8 for the red and a 4 for the blue. So the red's looking pretty good. You're then allowed to alternate and play cards that will add to your combat. And you'll see things like the imps will add +1, the Freenome factor will add +2, there's ion grenades that will add +3, and all of those add to your number. Now in addition, there's combat cards that will do things like the targeting computer, which will divide each player's dice total by 2 and round up. Now if you have an odd and an even, you can tell that'll obviously make an impact to the game there. There's also things that will cancel each other out, like the ion shield will cancel out the ion grenades. And then in addition, there are alien races that have a certain resistance or a certain immunity to specific types of attacks. There are also a lot of balance issues that, not their challenges, but things that you have to handle as a player throughout gameplay. If you build a hand that is all built around attacking and not defending, someone could potentially come in and absolutely destroy you with a little better roll and a little better attack cards. If you have all defense and no attack, you may just never win a battle, and you may never be able to take spoils or banish anybody out. So you have to kind of balance that. But in addition to that, there's cards that are going to let you take some pretty powerful actions, like 2 additional actions in a turn, or move 3 spaces in a turn for 1 action. There's a lot of different things you're going to want to have, and that's part of the beauty of Chaosmos. Is like most good games that are designed with challenges in mind, you're never able to do every single thing that you want to do. But you know the primary goal is finding and protecting and securing that ovoid. So in this case, it would be a pretty hard race for the blue player to take over that red player in terms of score. Now you may have noticed while we were rolling, there are these mirrors, these little egg symbols. If anyone in combat rolls a double mirror, it's considered infinity and they automatically win. However, if any other number is rolled, it mirrors that other number. So in this case, the blue player would have 10, the red player would have 8, and they would have to start playing cards from their hand back and forth to try and outmaneuver each other. Now, as you can imagine, doing this reveals information. With every card that you reveal to combat your opponent, the other people not in combat now know what's in your hand. So if these 2 players are fighting, and this player over here is watching them fight, they may see each player reveal 2 or 3 or maybe more cards from their hand and start to realize, maybe neither of them has the ovoid in their hand. Maybe I need to start exploring some more and getting away from them because they obviously have some big combat cards in their hand. Now the thing about combat cards is there's 2 types. There's the basic type that will add to your combat score and at the end of combat come back into your hand. And then there's others that are single-use cards, which are those yellow cards that will say single use on them, and once you use them, you put them off here into the void. And the void just becomes a discard pile, which you can potentially interact with later by stealing a card, basically like this recovery box that's out here, which lets you get a card from the void as an action. But for most part, once it's used, it's going to be going away. There's not a lot of recovery bots inside of the game. But combat would be very big and impactful, not just for the people in combat, but for the other players who get to see what's happening in combat as well. The real beauty of Chaosmos comes from its subtlety. It is a simple game of hide and seek. The ovoid is somewhere, and if you don't have it, somebody else does, whether it's a planetary envelope or another player. And it's up to you to really dig in, explore this wild universe. You find it, you safeguard it, you secure it, and you're able to have it when this clock hits 0. Now you may be saying to yourself, 60 turns is a lot. It's not. When you think about the fact that at the end of every turn, that clock clicks down 1. In a 2-player game, you each have 30 chances to possibly find the ovoid. In a 3-player game, you each have 20. And in a 4-player game, you have 15. But there are cards in this set that are going to allow you to manipulate this clock up or down. And that too becomes an even greater challenge inside of the ever-collapsing world of Chaosmos. So that's Chaosmos. Chaosmos is a deceitful game. This is a game where you're going to sit across the table and you are going to flat out lie to your friends or to perfect strangers, depending on who you play with. This is a very intriguing, fun, engaging game because every single thing someone does tells you a bit of information. The fact that you can be dealt the ovoid or not dealt the ovoid from the very beginning and start to read all of the players around the table feeds you information. Combat and the cards people reveal feeds you information. The planetary envelopes that you take control of and start to dig through the cards that exist on those planets feeds you information. And what you do with that information is what ultimately determines your success or utter failure when trying to find this one singular ovoid to protect your alien race. Now, A lot of the names in this were really hard to pronounce, just to be very straightforward. I had a little bit of trouble with it, but very nicely enough, each of the races has a little nickname, like the automaton or the collector or things like that, which is really kind of cool. And while it does have a very good science fiction flair, the real fun inside of Chaosmos is not the theme, but is the interaction of all the players. It's the fact that you get to sit down and start to decipher information and put the puzzle together. And the most fun really comes at the end of this game, where you start to realize what you thought you knew, you didn't know. There's a lot of, you know what I know, that I don't know, that you don't know, what he doesn't know, that she knows. Wait a minute, where the hell is this thing? There's a lot of different interaction points, whether it's combat, whether it's movement. The simplest things feeds information to you, and that's what really makes this game most interesting. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle you and your opponents have to put together, but you all only get a glimpse of the picture, and you have to decipher what's the best way for you to do that. Now, the game really has kind of two halves to it. If you don't know where the ovoid is, then the first half of the game is trying to find the ovoid. If you do have the ovoid, the first half of the game is, how am I going to protect this thing? While you may think to yourself it's really cool to be dealt the ovoid at the very beginning of the game, it's actually quite hazardous. We have found that it is actually more fun going out and finding it than actually having it and safeguarding it. Now, that said, it is still very, very fun, because to me, there is more of a challenge in having the ovoid in your hand from the very beginning and then having to go and safeguard it. And if that's the case, depending on what kind of player you are, this game could appeal to you from several different angles in that way. We've enjoyed our time with Chaosmos. It's been something that, for us, having a game group that knows quite a bit about each other and how to read each other, has made more challenging times, because it becomes, you normally play like this. Did you really do that, or are you trying to fake us out because this is a new game that we're playing? There's a lot of different things that come into the fold when you put those types of people together and sit them around a table with this type of game. Now, it is only for 2 to 4 players. If there was any wish that I could have, I wish it would be expanded to 6 players. We did try it with 6 players, however, just quite frankly, there's not enough cards to be able to really manipulate it and do it really right. There probably need to be a few more cards in there, which I think could happen, but you never know. Games like this, if they're successful on Kickstarter, you never know where they could go. So there could be more expansions, there could be more opportunities, there may even be opportunities for more players down the road, who knows. But as it is right now, 2 to 4 players works really well. It's a game that can be played, once you're very familiar with the game, in about 45 to 60 minutes. The first gameplay will usually take a little bit longer than that, mostly because you're not so much learning the cards, because the cards are very simple and straightforward. And that's actually something I really enjoyed, is that the cards are very straightforward. There's very rarely any question about, well, what does this card do, and how does it do this, and where does it, I mean, they are very straightforward, and I think it's purposely meant that way, because really what you're trying to do is combine these things between the attacks, the defenses, the bases, the traps, the vaults, all the different things that you can do to interact and either safeguard your precious little ovoid or make sure you find someone else's precious little ovoid. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening in this, and the fact that these are all very straightforward and simple was really, really nice. But at the end of the day, we've enjoyed Chaosmos. If this is your type of game, if it's something that is deceitful, lying, backstabbing, a little bit of information, not a little bit of information, trying to put that puzzle together over the course of time, it's something that may appeal to you and your group. Definitely take some time, check them out. There's links below in the video description. There's also a link at the end of this preview that you can go directly to their Kickstarter page. But until we see you next time, we hope that you enjoyed this critical preview. Let us know your thoughts and leave your comments below on the YouTube channel. Of course, you can join in the discussion on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+ by searching Crits Happen, or at our homepage at critshappen.com. But until we see you next time, we hope you enjoy all your interstellar travel, all your ovoid finding and protecting times inside of Chaosmos. Thanks so much for watching. Keep rolling those dice. We hope they're all crits.